My biggest fear as a Trick Room player is, what if they deny Trick Room? What do I do? Welcome to the Bauer Battle Breakdown, where self-reflection is how we grow. This lead, you'll see something indicative of several ladder games that I've played. I find that when people lead Calyrex Shadow into my team, they are attempting to imprison in order to stop my Porygon or my other Trick Room setter from doing just that. Thankfully, I've become wise to this strategy, and if I find myself in a situation just like this, I will simply double up into the Calyrex slot, and since Calyrex cannot do a huge amount of damage to either Porygon 2 or Incineroar, it ends up being a pretty safe play that works more often than not. My opponent swaps in their own Incineroar for some pressure on turn 2, but you will see that the Calyrex did try to imprison and is instead going to get KO'd for free. Now, with Calyrex out of the way, I'm able to set Trick Room, but Incineroar is there. It can fake out, it can possibly taunt. I decide that I'm going to go ahead and click Trick Room anyway. I don't think he's going to let me do it, but I will Parting Shot off of the Groudon in order to slow it down in the meantime. As you saw, I did take the fake out. Thankfully, Incineroar dodged the Precipice Blades before dropping Groudon's stats and swapping into my Calyrex Ice. After taking the fake out last turn, I decide that I will again try to set up Trick Room. I debate doing Protect with my Calyrex, which I think would have been a decent enough play. However, I ultimately decided that it was too dangerous to keep Calyrex in, so I swapped to Incineroar, much safer play. Go ahead and mitigate the Groudon, and to a lesser degree, the Incineroar. Intimidate happens. The opposing Groudon will Rock Slide, so now there's a flinch concern with setting Trick Room as well. My opponent's Incineroar, rather, does Taunt, and to add insult to injury, I flinched off the Rock Slide anyway. Now, Porygon is taunted, but I don't really have a good opportunity to switch it out. My opponent will withdraw their Groudon, and I will end up double attacking that slot, but it is Gastrodon, so it's not going to do too much. But I'm kind of in this awkward position where I need to get a Trick Room setter back in play, but I can't safely swap out Porygon 2. There's going to be lots of pivots over these next couple of turns. Parting Shot happened. Here's a foul play that's going to do some damage. The Gastrodon has leftovers, which doesn't make this any easier. Now, this turn coming up is key. I decide that with Incineroar out of the way, I can safely swap out to a Moongus and then Parting Shot the Groudon. I'll be able to reposition myself to once again attempt to set up Trick Room. Incineroar is not going to dodge the Precipice Blades this time. Going to eat the Shuca Berry and hang on just barely, thankfully, enough to get the Parting Shot to put Porygon back in play next to a Moongus, which is a great position for me to be able to try and set up Trick Room yet again. Sunlight fades, and now it's time to try again. I've been getting along pretty well so far, but it's getting to the point where my Pokemon are going to start dropping off from taking too much damage. For a second, I figure that Rage Powder is a good way to protect Porygon, but with the spread moves that Groudon has, I ultimately decide against that. The Rage Powder is not going to be super useful. I'll go ahead and swap in Incineroar, possibly sacrificing it, in order to give Porygon 2 the best chance to set Trick Room that it can. Groudon will Rock Slide once again. Unfortunately, Incineroar does go down to this. Gastrodon does Ice Beam. We always gotta hold our breath a little bit every time Ice Beam happens, but it doesn't matter because I flinch to the Rock Slide and once again get denied the opportunity to set Trick Room. Calyrex comes in, and I decide that since Groudon has already been weakened a couple of times, that I'm going to attempt to set Trick Room with Calyrex while doing Recover for Porygon 2, see if I can have it stay in play a little bit longer. Rock Slide for the jillionth time. Gastrodon's going to Yawn. I think this is the first time we see Yawn this game. Calyrex will grow Drowsy. Porygon is going to get up to a more respectable amount of health, And you guessed it, Calyrex flinches. We don't get Trick Room up. Gastrodon recovers a little bit. At this point, I am fearing for Calyrex, and now that Porygon 2 is at a better health amount, I'm going to go ahead and have it set the Trick Rooms again. Incineroar will come in and Intimidate. Unfortunately, this uses up the white herb on Calyrex just as I'm about to switch it out, but Amoonguss gets in. Gastrodon yawns the Porygon 2, and at long last, I get Trick Room up, and I'm ready to go. I finally have Trick Room up, but I don't have a super good way to get Calyrex in. I decide that I'm going to awkwardly try attacking with Porygon, and I'm going to protect with Amoonguss for what is probably the fake out. Now, I imagine my opponent is expecting some switch outs. So again, I'm a little bit worried to put Calyrex Ice in. Porygon is drowsy, Amoonguss is getting Spore, but the fake out is there, so I can't do anything with it right away. I am able to stick an Eerie Impulse on the Gastrodon before Porygon falls asleep, and this is important because Porygon is going to be asleep for the rest of this game. The Protect on Gastrodon, I feel, is very obvious. So I Spore into the Incineroar slot, but I'm feeling pretty sure that it is Safety Goggles, and you see I am going to find that out here in a moment. So unfortunately, Porygon's still asleep. I'm going to lose Amoonguss here to this Flare Blitz. Unfortunately, it didn't get to do much. However, this does mean that I'm going to be able to get my Calyrex Ice in play in a safe position and ready to go. You're going to see here in a moment, I do not hesitate with this Dynamax button. It's time to go, it's time to take advantage of Trick Room, and it's time to have Calyrex really shine through. I click buttons with Porygon, and those buttons don't matter because it's going to be sleeping, like I said, for the rest of this game. Porygon 2 is asleep. Gastrodon is going to stick a Yawn, which is really significant. I'm going to Quake, and Incineroar is going to go down here without being able to do anything else. So thankfully, I'll get a special defense boost. I'll get the Chilling Neigh boost to get more attack power. Calyrex has just been yawned. We're pretty sure that Gastrodon is going to protect this turn, so it all really comes down to whether or not this Groudon is capable of max guarding. Gastrodon is already -2 special attack, so it's not going to be doing very much damage at all. It's all about this Groudon, whether or not we can take it out before bad things start happening. I click Recover with Porygon, but as we've established, that doesn't matter. My opponent Dynamaxes their Groudon, and Gastrodon is going to get in an Earth Power here. Oh, nope, not before Porygon proves that it's just going to sleep forever. Earth Power comes in, and as mentioned before, this does 12 damage, so we are not concerned about Gastrodon. Notably, we don't see the max guard from Groudon, so the Hail will connect, will KO, and that will end the game. My opponent still has Gastrodon left. My Calyrex is about to fall asleep, but my opponent decides here on the following turn that they're going to give up. They're not going to see it out. I think a little bit about what moves I'm going to click, but it does not matter. How do you stay in the driver's seat when playing a Trick Room team? The baseline idea is that your opponent will use some sort of lead in order to deny your capability to set up Trick Room. So, what are your counterplay options? First, you can deny the denier. This game was a really good example of that. In some cases, the Pokemon that threatens to stop your Trick Room setup can be dispatched by your lead. In the case of mine, it was Porygon and Incineroar doubling up with Dark-type attacks into Calyrex. While it did do Imprison, it didn't survive past the first turn, opening me up for more options on the following turn. Secondly, you can maintain your positioning. This is also something that I did during this game. Even though there were several turns where I was not allowed to set up Trick Room, I stayed in position. I mitigated my opponent's physical attackers with Intimidate. I have Eerie Impulse on Porygon 2, which really neutralized that Gastrodon from being able to do anything useful. Sometimes you're able to slow the game down enough so that your opponent can't run away with it when they deny your Trick Room setup. Third, and my personal favorite, is let's say your opponent leads with one Taunter and you have two Trick Room setters. Just click Trick Room with both of them. No matter who they pick, you still get Trick Room up. Thank you so much for tuning into this week's Bauer Battle Breakdown. Would you have handled that battle differently? Let me know what you think. If you like this series, please check out my trailer for the series and also the other episode that I have done already. I'll put those up here on the screen. That's my time, and I'll see y'all next week.